Hi, everyone. This is Casey Cease with Lucid Books, and I'm here with one of our children's authors today, Joanna Zeiner. Joanna, thanks so much for taking a moment to just share a little bit about yourself and your book with us.
You're welcome. Happy to be here.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your family, your background, and what led you to a little bit about your book, what led you to writing it?
Okay. Well, I'm married and have 3 grown daughters and 6 grandchildren, and we kind of spaced out all over the place. My husband and I have been in ministry ever since we were 20 years old.
Wow.
I won't tell you how long ago that was, but yeah, we've been in the Methodist Church, we've been in the Free Methodist Church, we've been in now we're in you'd say a community church. Mm-hmm. We've been missionaries for 13 years in South Africa, and all of my life I've written, but I've written for a purpose, for a curriculum, for devotionals, for whatever ministry I happen to be in. But at the beginning of 2019, I decided, it's time for me to put some things down that I've been working on for myself. Mm. So thus, my books have been introduced to Lucid, and y'all have helped me with some publishing for myself.
Well, we've enjoyed working with you. So what compelled you to write this book that we're talking about today? It's Little Pete's Great Big Life Lesson, A Miracle for Angelo. What's compelled you to write these?
Okay, it's kind of interesting. I was looking through some of my diaries the other day, way back in 2005, I believe. I said something in there about home. And I said, this thing about home, I guess that's why Little Pete means so much to me in his search for home. Because I realized as a missionary, I wasn't at home anywhere. Mm. When I was in South Africa going to the States, I was going home. When I was in the United States going back to South Africa, I was going home. And I realized I was in this period where I really wasn't sure where home was. So I started seeking, well, what is home? What does it mean to be at home? And I realized, obviously, that home is where your heart is. And where your heart is, the Lord's your home, if He is, your heart. So I started just jotting down notes, and the book just flew out of it, I guess. I put it in animals because I thought, what? If I knew this as a child, I wouldn't have to search as a 50-year-old adult. Where home is. But then I didn't want to put it in a child's voice because it would be, I guess, too close to home, too personal, too lecturing, I think, to a child. So I thought, well, let me just try a fun story and let this story emerge. Had friends that had miniature dachshunds, and so that just came to my mind. And so I started with a little animal who needed to know where home was and what does that mean. And the story just kind of grew from there, from leaving home, like I did, not knowing where home was, and then going through the process of finding. Coupled with that is the ministry that I became part of in South Africa called Christian Listeners. And in that, I learned, and then I thusly taught people a skill of listening to themselves, to others, in the presence of a listening God. And all of this is about listening to yourself and to your heart so that you can better be able to listen to others. So my little puppy listened to people in all the wrong places and had to find where his heart was when he became alone and lost, and then a fun encounter with another character helped him to realize that home is in his heart. So it took years. It took years. I published in 2019. This was 2005. I was reading my diary, so that it kind of percolated for a long time while I was working on other things as well. So Yeah, it's a story dear to my heart because it's almost like my story, So, yeah.
So how did you know it was time? I mean, that's an interesting journey. 14 years after you first penned this concept, you realized, okay, now's the time to publish. Tell me a little bit. I know people who are watching are probably have a book in them that maybe they've worked on, or a concept or something else. Help us understand a little bit how you knew it was the right time.
Well, for me, I had been so busy with Christian listeners, writing curriculum, devotionals. I actually spent a lot of time taking it from UK English into South African English, into American English, into Zulu, into other African nations, helping translate it. And I was so busy doing all that, I didn't have the time and space to really live with my story. So at the end of 2018, here in Canepa, Texas, I'm not much on New Year's resolutions, not very good at keeping them. They're usually not realistic. But at the end of 2018, I just prayed and said, Lord, what's my priority for this coming year? What do I need to focus on? And it was very clear in my mind, you need to stop everything else and put your stories down in print. It's time. And I heard the words, it's time, just like a Kairos moment almost. It was in the fullness of time, little Pete needed to come to the fore. And that was my process for the whole of last year, those two stories.
So as a reader comes and sits to read your book or have the book read to them, what are you hoping they experience through this journey?
I hope that they realize that so many things that we get confused with and are searching for out there, if we would just stop and listen and take note, they're already there. They're already in you if you would just listen. I really believe that when most people are searching for the other, it's things that they're hungry for that they're not actually participating in within themselves. And God is there to hear them and to help them bring that to the fore. Little Pete, for instance, kept saying, how do I learn to be myself? And all of his little friends said, well, to be myself, which meant them, means to do this, 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 and this. Well, what little Pete had to understand is no, being myself isn't like everybody else. And I see kids, I even see adults doing that. The confusion of what does it mean to be me? Well, it means to be just like that, just like that. Well, no, it means to find the true person you were created to be by the Creator Himself. And that's in there if we will just listen to Him and listen to our heart.
So it's interesting. We've worked with a lot of different authors as they go through the process of writing the book. And while you wrote this concept and you wrote the book along the way, what did you learn about yourself in the process of actually beginning to commit to publishing and going through the publishing process?
I learned about myself. I was highly unsure of myself and scared that y'all would say no.
That's often what I find, and you're just more honest about it, because I tell people, authors, especially first-time authors, remind me of first-time parents. And while they're thrilled and excited, they're terrified because they're bringing something to bear that people are going. That's a reflection of themselves that people are going to judge one way or the other, and so it's a terrifying process. It really is.
It's like if they reject Little Pete, they reject me.
Yeah, that's an important note. Yeah. Yeah.
So and that's just to carry that on a little bit. It's like, okay, how many books have sold on Amazon? How many? It's like, no, that's not my job anymore. My job, and this is what I prayed, Casey, the entire time I was writing. Lord, you've given me the gift of this story. So help me to write it right, and then I send it off.
There you go.
And
it's yours to write and yours to share, and then trust the Lord to carry it where He needs to. And so with that, what feedback have you received so far from those who have read your book?
It's all been really superlative, to tell you the truth. I've had people all the way from it brought tears to my eyes to this was the exact thing my child needed to transition from picture books to chapter books.
Yeah.
I was so excited when I read the story to my daughter, and then she turned around and read it to her little brother. No, and even one lady said, this story brings up questions that I have to answer for myself and not just for my child.
Yeah.
And that's good to me,
Absolutely.
to stop and think.
And I think that's what makes great children's literature is that whomever reads it, there's something in it for them. That as they, coming alongside mom and dad or grandma and grandpa or a caretaker or caregiver, and I really think that's what's wonderful and thoughtful about your books as you bring it to the table. So, what have you loved about working with Lucid Books? I love asking this question because I can tell when authors choose that to be a question to talk about that we're heading the right direction. So,
yeah.
And quite honestly, this is our first time really interacting. You've worked with the team, and so I can ask that without feeling so high and mighty, but more just opportunity to learn and let people who are watching this, if they're considering partnering with Lucid Books, what can they look forward to?
Right. I was amazed that I felt like with each new person that I met and each interaction that I had with that person, I honestly felt like they were my cheerleader. They were so excited about working with me, and they were excited about my book, and they told me so. And I guess my South African word I was going to say, I was really chuffed when I heard that.
I love that word.
So it was exciting because I thought, they believe in me. They really do. And there was nothing I could ask, even if I was asking it for the third time, that I felt like I was being a bother or they didn't have enough time, but they would take the time. They were just, the entire team on every level that I worked with was supportive in a superlative way.
Well, and we've enjoyed very much working with you and just the dynamic you bring to the table, your experience in ministry, your missionary heart, your desire to help kiddos and those who raise kiddos. So what's one of the biggest lessons you've learned so far about promoting your book?
About promoting my book, it's hard work.
It is, isn't it? Yes, it is.
I'm not a promoter. We always got in trouble as missionaries because we didn't ask for money.
Yeah.
We shared our ministry and said, if you want to walk along with us, we'd love to have you, but we never asked for dollars and cents.
Yeah.
Our mission board would always say, you need to ask for support. But we couldn't.
Yeah.
Because we felt like God would bring partners with a vision to walk with us. And so it's hard for me to say, buy my book. You'll really get a lot out of it. And
that's why I've given away probably over 1,000 of my book for free, and then I give it away digitally. And so as I'm similar in that regard, I don't mind asking for a deal or something if we're working on a publishing deal, but for myself, it's pretty interesting on that. So if an organization or company, a nonprofit or a church wanted you to come in to serve or to speak, what are some things that you would be passionate to share with a group of people?
Okay, well, and I have already been asked, and I have shared on the level of, number one, listen to your kids. Mm-hmm. Because there's questions out there and they're confused about what the answers are. And a lot of people are telling them what they ought to do and who they ought to be.
Right, yeah.
So listen to your kids and help them define the person that they are inside. And don't ever, ever make them feel like you don't have time for them. I think that was one of the things, my character in the book, the little boy's dad, was so sold on his son and doing what he could to support his son that he actually made the little boy bigger than he really was. And he made little Pete more important maybe than he even was, because he married those two together in their mutual need for each other. And the dad was there for them no matter what. And just listen to your kids and help them ask the right questions. And there's no Christian wording in that entire book, but it's loaded with principles. And I did not want to go to a typical Christian publishing company with a name, whatever, because the need in children's lives go far beyond a Christian bookstore. And so somehow to write a story that make people think and to know what they need to be walking alongside their kids with. I want them to hear that, and I want them to see it, and I hope I portrayed that in the characters in the book.
So one last question. If you could have any superpower, what would it be and why?
What would it be? My husband asked something similar to that in his sermon Sunday, when he said, if you were to ask God for anything, what would you ask him for? And my immediate response, and I think that would be my superpower that I would do, is to know the right words that I would be able to communicate verbally or in written form, the right words that would bring people to a greater understanding of themselves and of God. If I could just know the right words and put them down there. And words are powerful. Stories are powerful. And to be able to lay them out there so that people can learn, they can hear, and they can, I firmly believe you know yourself better when you know yourself in the presence of God. And he makes you who he's created you to be. And we're all special in his eyes. And he has a very creative something for all of us to be.
Well, Joanna, thank you so much for stopping by and visiting with us, sharing about your book and your projects. Folks, you can go visit her website. I love this name. It's one of the hippest names I've seen in websites in a long time. Zeiner Books, DEZEINER books.com. You can also find her by the similar name, DE-Zeiner Books, on Facebook as well. Joanna, thanks so much for stopping by, and we hope to connect again soon.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, Casey. Bye-bye.